Okay. Can you see me? Let me know if it's working now. Okay, probably a smaller window because I didn't have time to readjust the code, but hopefully it doesn't kick me off uh, thinking that I'm violating some sort of copyright, which is so bizarre, seeing as there's like no content to compare it against. But maybe it's all the weird tech stuff happening with having to use more automated filters, I think. So hopefully their copyright detection software or whatever is kind of scanning everything is not on like super drive today and keeps kicking me off. But if it does, I will either reschedule this and we'll do it another time, or I will um, post a link to Zoom and we can hop over to Zoom instead. So if things start to go haywire and you still want to stick with me, I'll put I'll paste a link. This is the backup plan. I'll paste a link to a Zoom meeting beneath this, and we'll switch over to Zoom. And then I'll also reschedule for another time for anyone who uh, can't make it. All right. But as long as we're here and things are working, if you haven't already said hi in the chat box and you are here live and can see me, then go ahead and say hi so I could see who's here. Okay. I'm like holding my breath now. Okay. So, the topic of today is personal mission statements, which is something that I've been thinking about a lot this week. It ties into stuff that I think about and talk about and teach on frequently, but I haven't really recently been thinking about it specifically in the context of personal mission statements. But as I started, usually I just think about like core values and aligning with what is authentic for you, which is all the same thing. But this is just like a very concrete tool that is really helpful because it's one thing to kind of know what your priorities are and your values are in a general sense, but it's another thing to like force yourself to clarify them enough to write them into a few sentences or one sentence even, and put it down on paper. You start to see the areas where you're maybe not as clear as you thought you were, or where you are very clear, and you can kind of work that out. And then you also have a kind of a living document to go back to where you can keep adjusting it as you start to kind of apply it to your life and see where it fits or doesn't fit. You'll know where it needs adjustment, and then eventually you'll probably come to a statement that feels really true for you and really resonates and works with all areas of your life. But even that will change over time because our priorities change over time. So, what is a mission statement anyway? It's it's just a sentence or a short paragraph that sums up what you're trying to accomplish. So, most businesses or a lot of businesses have a mission statement where it's like this is kind of what their company is all about and what they're trying to do, the impact they're trying to have. And that And they use that to keep everyone on the same page and make sure that the kind of new projects that they're taking on are not that they're not kind of branching out in all these random directions, that they have a really clear message and clear vision for where they want to go. And so it sums up our values as far as like certain qualities and ways that we want to live our life, and also our priorities in terms of like how we want to spend our time, like what we want to do in our lives. So we'll break that down into a couple parts. But essentially, it's what you believe in, what you're striving to become. And it can be a sort of a through line in everything that you do once you know what it is. And it's also a good way to just set an intention. It's a good intention setting exercise that you can then go back to every day or once a month or whatever works for you, and just like reset that intention and remind yourself how you want to show up and for yourself and for others. So we'll start by just brainstorming some keywords. If you haven't already, grab a pen and some paper and just jot down any phrases or words that immediately came to your mind when I was talking about priorities or values. There are usually a few things where if I ask you, like, what is important to you, you will have certain things that you know are important to you already. So if you have any of those words come up, just jot those down, or phrases. If it's like, uh, it's important to me to be outside in nature, or it's important to me to be honest. So it can be, like I said, like kind of more of an activity, or it could be more of like a personal quality. But just jot down all the your just like initial thoughts. And don't worry about filtering anything as we go. We'll do a lot of brainstorming and then at the end start to filter it out and put it into sentences. Right now, we just want to kind of get all the things that we think. And sometimes you'll think something is important to you, and then once you compare it to a bunch of other things, you're like, oh, well, it's not actually as important as those other things. So, um, or it's more important than I thought it was, and I haven't been giving it enough attention. But we'll get to that kind of weeding out process. I'll give you a few minutes just to brainstorm keywords. And next, we're going to focus on what, for the purpose of this exercise, I'm calling core values. Core values can be a lot of things, but for this exercise, we're going to think of them as certain qualities, like personal qualities or qualities that you value in others. So these are things that they're shaped by your unique personality and your experiences in your life. So everyone's are going to be different, and there's no right or wrong. Sometimes going through this exercise, it can feel like, well, I feel like I should value this thing, or my family really values this thing, or my culture really values this thing. So sometimes it takes a little bit of assessment to weed out the things that you think you should value, and actually be really honest about what you do value. So these are going to be traits like um, honesty, bravery, intellect, humor, kind of more, not so much the activities like getting out in nature, but uh, more just like a single word that encompasses a quality. So it might be related to that activity, which we'll find where those kind of crossover later. If you Google like core values list, you'll find lists where there's like hundreds of words, and those can be a good jumping off point. I will pull up some right now just to help give us some ideas. Sometimes a really long list can be a little bit overwhelming, and there will be a lot of words on them that are very similar, and that can be either helpful or or overwhelming in trying to figure out like which version of humor, for example. There's a lot of different ways that humor is expressed. For you, it might be a more like silliness, and for someone else, it might be more kind of like clever, intellectual type of humor. So you can either just choose for now like a general term that jumps out to you, or if you can make it more specific. That's something that I found for my personal mission statement has refined over time, where I kind of had like a general, like in mind, there's something about health and happiness. And I knew like looking at that, I was like, yes, I value those things, but it just felt a little generic to me. And then I was able to choose words that were the same, but kind of had a slightly different connotation to me. Like wellness for me resonates more than health. And for some people, those might seem like the same thing, but to me, they just have slightly different meanings and uh, slightly different feelings to me. So you'll find which specific subsets kind of call out to you. And if you want to pop some into the chat box as you think of them, feel free to share those if you want to. It's looking like either someone popped in or out or got kicked off. So I just wanted to, if you can still see and hear me. And now I'm like paranoid. It's not telling me that I've been cut off. So it looks like I'm still going. Okay. But yes, here's some examples. Adventure, authenticity, achievement, authority, autonomy, beauty, compassion, community. Oh, thanks, Jen. Whew, still working. Okay. Citizenship, competency, creativity, curiosity, determination, faith, friendship, um, fun, growth, honesty, humor, harmony, kindness, justice, knowledge, love, loyalty, open-mindedness, optimism, pleasure, recognition, respect, service, success, stability, wealth, wisdom. Those are just a few to kind of like give you an example. If any of those jumped out at you or sparked something in your mind. And as you're kind of brainstorming that, I'll just give you a few minutes to think about those qualities. There can be sometimes it's difficult if you are looking at a list and you're like, well, I value all of these things. Like, I value kindness and honesty and compassion and truth. And um, so it can take a minute to kind of accept that we can value all those things, but there are certain things that we value the most. So if you had to choose, if you were doing like a bracket competition where each one you have like two words and then you have to choose one of those two and then it goes down to one and then you have to choose and then it goes down to one. Uh, and then which ones are going to end up in the middle? Like which ones are going to be really at the top of your, I would say like top five. If you can narrow it down to five, that's awesome. Sometimes you need to start with more. Sometimes you start with 10, and then over time, you can kind of really start to narrow that down to five or three. But if you have more than 10, then I encourage you to really start comparing them and seeing which ones are actually really important to you or that you feel really drawn to. And like I said, you might feel like some you should. Like you might be like, man, I really feel like I should value love more than success or something. But try not to put a judgment on whether it's good or bad to value the things that you value. Just kind of let it out there for now. It's in your private um, notes anyway. So just at least internally be honest about what really pulls you. And you might, again, find as you start to kind of use it in your life, you'll see more of the nuance of like what success actually means to you, or whether success is actually as important to you as you thought. You'll start to figure those things out. So don't worry too much about that. But for example, someone who is maybe has grown up in a military family and really thrives in that structure of having more of a set kind of hierarchy of authority and likes everything to be kind of a little bit more regimented and likes knowing who to turn to, um, and feels that it's really important to respect authority and to follow what the rules and things like that. That's perfectly acceptable. I mean, that is one person's personality and experience, and someone else might be the exact opposite and be like, not really value authority at all and really values freedom and self autonomy and uh, having more of a less structured kind of ideal. And like their keywords are going to be very different, but they're not going to be necessarily better or worse. They're just going to be different. Okay, so hopefully you've got a few kind of core value words that stand out to you. And next we're going to think about priorities. So again, for the purposes of this exercise, when I say priorities, I mean values that are more like people, places, things, activities, etc., that are important to you. For example, spending time with your family could be a priority for you, or being outdoors, making art, staying fit, uh, serving others through your business, connecting with your faith, things like that will be your priorities. So start to kind of brainstorm that aspect of how do you want to spend your time? Like what are the most important things for you to spend your time on, or people to spend your time with? The work that you want to do in the world, those types of things. What activities make you happy, and what aspects of life kind of give your life a little bit more of a feeling of purpose and meaning. And you might start to see that some of these overlap with your core value words. For example, if you really value freedom, you might also really value travel as a priority, like having time to travel and making that a priority. And those could you could see how those tie in with each other, that you have it's important to you that you have a lifestyle where you have the freedom and flexibility to travel whenever and wherever you want to. That might be a priority and a value for you. I was going to say something else about that and it just left my head. I can't get it back. And then we'll start to piece these together in the next section. I really feel like there was something I was going to say, and now it's nagging my brain that it just left. That's okay. This is why I make notes to myself, because my brain goes on tangents and then can't always find its way back. I don't have anything else in my notes, so it must not have been that important. It's probably just another example. So in order to kind of start putting these together into sentences where you might start your mission statement with my mission is to, and it might be a few sentences. I think my personal one is maybe a run-on sentence, actually. And I do value grammar, but not as highly as I value functionality and just doing what works for me. So don't worry too much if yours also ends up being a run-on sentence, as long as it is clear for you and makes sense to you. Or it might end up being a few sentences, or you might end up starting with just kind of having a different one for different large chunks of your life. If you do own your own business, or even if you're working for someone else, it might be easier for you to kind of think about those in chunks. Like my mission with my work is to, my mission with my relationships is to, and my mission with my personal mental and physical wellness is this. So whatever structure kind of makes it easy for you, and then you can either stick with having multiple ones, or I recommend seeing where the themes overlap and then trying to really condense it into one cohesive statement that really applies to all areas of your life. But here are some questions that might help you put them into sentences. If you think about, how do I want to show up in the world? Who do I want to be? How do I want to act? And that might show up in your statement as, my mission is to treat everyone I meet with respect and honesty, or my mission is to show up authentically and bring my humor and my intellect to every situation, or to my relationships and my work. So when you think about your ideal version of yourself, who you are kind of working to become, what qualities do you admire in others that usually cues you into what is valuable to you, and usually things that either are already personal qualities that you don't maybe recognize in yourself, um, or are qualities that you wish you had and that you want to cultivate. Usually, if you wish you had a certain quality, there's already like a seed of that quality within you. I think sometimes we see other people and we're like, oh man, they're really awesome because of this. And you might not feel that you have the capacity to also be awesome in that way. But generally, if you see it, if that stands out to you, you have that kind of innate capacity already built into your DNA. So that's also kind of an exercise in and of itself if you're struggling to kind of identify some of those qualities. If you make a list of like 10 or 20 uh, leaders or celebrities or uh, just people in your life that you are drawn to, that you like their work or their message or their style, people that you respect and admire, essentially. If you make a list of all those names of people, and then after you make that first column, then in the second column, you list out the things that you admire about them, like the the qualities, I guess. I feel like there were 3 steps to this exercise. I haven't done it in a while. Those are the 2 most important. That and that second, the, like, breaking down the qualities, there's a way to break it down into 2 exercises where it's maybe, like, the things that they do or, like, I don't know. I'll have to go back and look at the actual exercise, but the most important thing is listing the people and then the qualities that you associate with them, and that usually will tune you into 1, things that you value, and 2, things that qualities that you probably already possess yourself, or that you would be more fulfilled if you focused on cultivating those qualities. For me, I've noticed that the people, well, there's kind of 2 um, subsets of people I follow where I'm really drawn to their work. One set is like I follow a lot of female entrepreneurs because that's the circle that I'm in, and also a lot of wellness people. And I'm really drawn to people who have really kind of beautiful, minimalistic, uh, soothing, or colorful aesthetics, like where their brand is just really pretty, um, but not like too overwrought or, or fancy or uh, high end, but just like simple and clean. And then also, I'm really drawn to people who are really down to earth and just kind of show up as themselves and don't do their hair and makeup, and they just show up and they're just like, "Hey guys, let's talk about this thing," which is, you may notice, the way that I show up for my webinars, uh, is just as I am at my house doing my thing. And for some other people, they would be drawn more to like a Beyonce type person where it's that kind of polished, really empowered female leadership. Like you might use words like strong or accomplished. And those might be, when you think of her and you think of those words, that might be really appealing to you, or you might really admire those qualities. And for me, I think those qualities are awesome. And I totally admire Beyonce and what she's doing and women who encompass those qualities, but they're not like a top priority for me personally. Uh, the words just don't really resonate with me. Like, to be strong and accomplished is awesome, but it's not. It just doesn't spark something within me. I just say, go you, you go do that thing. I'm going to be laid back and whatever my keywords are. Authenticity is a big keyword for me, which can show up in a lot of different ways. Okay, I'll go back to these questions. Sorry, I was trying to give you some time to think, but it will be more helpful if I give you these questions to help you clarify. So, other questions, what is the most important way I can spend my time, or what do I want to do with my life? I know that's a big question that you may not really have an answer to, but if you think about like what is my purpose, or a good way to think about it also is, what is the legacy that I want to leave behind? So, what is the work that I want to do in the world? What do I want to contribute? And again, it's going to be a different, some some things are going to be the same but different depending on your situation. In other words, you might, for one person, showing up in a successful way, they might be thinking about a large, you might think, well, I want to create this huge global nonprofit organization that helps women and children build their own houses. That's going to be some people's vision for what they want to contribute. And for some people, the vision of what they want to contribute is going to be in a different container of, maybe family is a priority for them, and their kind of values are to, what they want to do and accomplish is to raise children who are resilient and compassionate, whatever your values are, and to really nurture the connections with their close relationships and their close community. So that's another area where you might find yourself leaning into a self-judgment zone. So if you catch yourself thinking, my vision isn't big enough, uh, just ask yourself, am I thinking that because I'm judging that what I really want is not as good as what someone else wants? Or am I genuinely not thinking big enough and not allowing myself to uh, really express what I actually want? So this is a time to dream big. So don't worry about being realistic. Just think about, in your ideal vision of your future, what would you be doing? Who would you be as a person? This is a question I like a lot. What would I like people to say about me at the end of my life? So that's a good, and not necessarily like at your funeral, but even like when you're older, like if you're in your 80s or 90s, what do you want people to say about you? And again, that might be, what do you want the public to say about you? If you are someone who wants to show up on kind of a more, uh, in a more public way, you might have a vision of how people will talk about and refer to the work that you did in your organization. And then you might also have, like, the people who know me well, who are in my personal circle, will they say about me? What will my grandkids say about me when they're talking to their friends? When I'm like my I just posted a photo that my mom shared of my grandpa, who is 92, I think. 92. She shared a photo on Facebook of him. He's always like building stuff. He's an artist. He was an electrician his whole life, and then once he retired, he became an artist, like a visual artist. And now he's like always like making things, and he just built like I think a tiny library and like a tiny food library for uh, people in his neighborhood. And like, it just amazes, like when I talk about him, the things, like the words that I use to describe him are really creative, uh, lots of energy, makes me feel like I am slacking and not doing enough because he's just like always has energy. And I'm like, how do you at 92 have more energy than I than I do than I ever have like in my youth? Um, so you might think about it that way, like when you are 92, what are your grandkids or your neighbors or your um, best friends or whoever the people in your life, what are they going to be saying about you? Or what would you hope that they would say about your personal qualities and about kind of what you've accomplished, not to be too like productivity focused because I'm not super into that. Not a value for me, but uh, in a general sense of the word accomplished, just what has happened for you in your life. And and the last question is how do I want to feel emotionally and physically? So that might tie into like your health and wellness goals. It might also tie into, for me, the word simplicity is not, I don't think it's in my personal mission statement, but that's something I've been thinking about a lot this year. And you might find this might be true for you also. This is true for me that there are words, kind of keywords that I I use to kind of retune myself and to focus on that aren't necessarily explicitly stated in my personal mission statement. But if you have some words that you're like, these are really valuable to me, but I haven't figured out how to put them into my statement, that's totally fine. You could just leave them like as a little end note. Uh, but for me, simplicity is a theme. A theme. You might think of it that way as a theme. A theme that I keep coming back to. And part of that is because I know that simplicity for me helps me feel more calm and uh, present and able to focus. And that is part of my my values is that feeling of being, that's part of like my like mental and physical wellness, and which is to not feel so stressed, and in order to do that then simplicity is kind of a tool I use. So I hope that jumble of words made sense. Like how do you, yeah, how do you want to feel? So just choose what resonates with you and remember that this will change most likely over time, and also as you start to put it into action and use it as a tool, which I'll talk about next, you'll find areas of your life where you like try to apply it and you'll find ways to refine it based on kind of putting it into action and seeing how it works or doesn't. And you'll see where it needs to be refined and where it needs to be expanded. So putting it into action, this whole exercise, creating your personal mission statement, is really only useful if you remember to refer back to your personal mission statement after you created it. If you're anything like me, you make lots of notes to yourself and then you just never remember to go back and look at them. So it's a good, you might want to like post it somewhere where you will see it every day, like on your bathroom mirror, or if you have a planner, like write it in the front of your planner, somewhere where you can refer back to it easily and remind yourself. It's very easy to get caught up in kind of this the patterns are kind of routines of life, and to not stop and pause and check in. We just get into this kind of go, go, go. So as you work to kind of stop and pause as you are feeling yourself becoming stressed, or um, like in times where I find myself just kind of wandering around, like what should I be doing right now? That's a good time to check in. Uh, or whenever you need to make a decision about something is also a good time. So it will help you decide whether to say yes or no to something. Sometimes it will be really clear just depending if it's obviously a direct conflict with something that you is really important to you, then that is a good clue that you should maybe say no. Or if it's super aligned, once you get clear about what kind of your vision for your life is, what your goal for your life is, it's much easier to see when those opportunities come that are aligned. Sometimes we miss them because we haven't set our energy and our focus and our intention on this personal mission, so to speak. And so our energy and our thoughts are being pulled in so many directions that we don't necessarily notice when something is actually really aligned for us. Uh, or we don't notice when something is really not aligned and somehow we got pulled into doing it. So you can use it to kind of assess whether to say yes or no to something, and also to kind of inventory the things you're already spending a lot of time on, and whether you want to keep putting your energy in that place. Um, yeah, so some questions you can ask yourself are: is this in alignment with my mission statement? Is this in alignment with the vision I have for myself? Is it in alignment with who I am or who I am working to be? And is this a part of my purpose in life? And there are, of course, going to be decisions and areas that are complex and where this isn't going to be like a clear yes or no, or where there will be multiple kind of conflicting. It's like part of this is a yes and part of this is a no. So it's not like this is going to solve all your decision making problems, but it just kind of gives you uh, a guidepost to kind of generally steer things in that direction. I like to think of it as a compass for kind of making incremental steps toward that end vision of where you want to be, and for staying more on track and focusing your energy and your intention. So try to think of something in your life right now, either a decision that you're trying to make or an area or an activity that is taking a lot of your time and energy, and just see if you can apply this statement um, to that. And if it helps at all, and if it doesn't help, you might consider the ways in which maybe you haven't been specific enough, or um, where you need to add something in to your statement or clarify something. And also, you might have a situation where, let's say, your sister is asking you to do something, and the thing she's asking you to do is not really aligned with your priorities, but keeping really like supporting your close relationships is a priority. So there might be like, well, this part doesn't line up, but this part does. And then you just need to decide what works for you at that time in that moment. And if you do choose to do it, then you can have this way to lean into the energy of the things that are aligned. And that will help you kind of conserve your energy instead of focusing on the ways that it's not and letting that drain your energy. Every time you're doing that activity, you can remind yourself, I'm doing this because I love my sister and it's very important to me that I support her. And having that connection to that purpose is going to feed your energy more than if you're more focused on the part that isn't important to you, if that makes sense. So even just having that awareness can help you know where to focus your energy and your thoughts. And if anyone wants to share either some keywords or a part of their mission statement that they have so far, or any thoughts or questions in the chat box, please do. I think most people are watching this on the replay or will be watching it on the replay. But if you are here, I would love to see what your thoughts are so far. And on the topic of kind of applying this to your life, it might show up in big ways. There might be big questions and decisions that you are thinking about or assessing, such as like, am I in the right or best career for me? And there's also little things like, what should I have for lunch today? so so it can be used on any scale, and all of those, like even those small decisions, those are the decisions that are going to add up in the end to that vision that you're working toward. So sometimes we underestimate just the small choices. That's one way I'm using my personal mission statement, is to try to keep me on track with my wellness goals. And part of that is like, what am I putting in my body? Am I remembering to eat? And just reminding myself that that is my priority. And when I get sucked into doing something else or getting stressed about something else, and I'm using that stress to, not using it to avoid eating, but getting so caught up in that I'm not being mindful about what and when I'm eating, then when I catch myself and pause, I can remind myself, this is my like this is my mission. What can I do right now that would be more aligned with that mission than what have previously been choosing to do? So for me, it might be, I am scrolling scrolling Facebook or Instagram, and it's not adding anything. It's not at this moment adding anything that is getting me closer or that is aligned with the mission I've set for myself. What could I choose to do instead? I could choose to go drink some water. I could choose to go on a walk. That's something I've been trying to do a lot more recently, is move my body and get outside also. So when I catch myself having been on social media for an hour, and I say to myself, I really want to just sit on the couch and scroll on social media. Like there's a part of me that naturally wants to do that. Um, but is that aligned with what I said was a priority? And I just kind of have to be my own parent sometimes. I'm gonna turn my heater down. Okay, just making sure everything is still working over here. What else? Oh, I don't think I mentioned this yet. You can also use the same kind of process and framework to create a family mission statement if you are part of a family and you want to have kind of a cohesive uh, mission. It can be a fun and valuable uh, activity to sit down all together and be like, what as a family is important to us? And you can do the same process. So that's the whole process that I go through in my head. If you have any questions, feel free to type them in, or if you are not here live, feel free to email me at hello@alignmentandalchemy.com or send me a, a message on Instagram. Not so much on Facebook. I don't see those so much. If you send me a message through my Facebook business page, it's less likely to get to me. Uh, but email is great, and Instagram is probably second best as far as timeliness. But I'll definitely see it and respond to it. Um, yeah, I think that's a process. Hopefully that was helpful, and hopefully you have something. Also, I would love to, if you want to share or are comfortable sharing, would love to hear what the statements that you came up with. So send me those also if you want to. And if you want to take this further, if you are either having trouble like putting some of the pieces together, or just want to get a little bit more clarity, or want to get a little bit of help around a specific circumstance or situation in your life right now that you are trying to work through and want to apply this process to that, I think if you scroll down on this page, there should be a link to sign up for a mini mastermind, which is just a 30-minute free coaching session with me where we can work through whatever is on your mind, either related to this or not. But this is kind of the process that I am starting to use more and more with my coaching, is really clarifying priorities and values, and aligning with those incrementally. So use that button, sign up for a free mini mastermind. And if you really want to take it further and start applying it to your whole life, we can also talk about longer term coaching options if you are interested in that. If you are wanting to, I kind of think of it right now, I'm thinking about it as like Marie Kondoing your entire life. It's like the Con Marie core values, where we kind of assess each major area of your life, and we take everything out and we examine it, and we see what sparks joy or what is serving a purpose, and then make a plan for only putting back the things that are working for you, and replacing or adjusting or creating a plan for working towards greater alignment in the areas that are not working for you as well right now, or are not as aligned with that ideal vision as you would like. Also, coaching is a great option if you noticed that resistance was coming up. So if you were trying to dream big, but as you try to dream big, your brain is telling you all these messages about how that is not achievable or not good enough or not something enough, or how you are not enough or not capable enough of achieving that, then coaching can be great for working through those fears and resistance and limiting beliefs, and kind of identifying them, sometimes having someone to mirror that back to you and notice patterns that are coming up for you is really helpful. That's been helpful for me when I have a coach, is for them to be like, here's what I'm seeing and here's what you're saying, but is that really true? So like finding those areas where you are limiting yourself, and working through all that mindset stuff. And also breaking your goals down into manageable pieces. Sometimes when things feel really big, it can be helpful to have someone help you kind of parse that out and decide what to focus on now and what to focus on later and make that more manageable and less overwhelming. It's also great for accountability if you are like, yes, I totally am going to apply this to so many areas of my life and see what lines up and what doesn't. But you know that most likely you are not going to take consistent action if you don't have some sort of accountability. That's another um, great use of coaching is to have those weekly check-ins where you have uh, we'll set up, what is your goal for this week? What action are you going to take? And then that gives you the motivation to get that done by the next session and have someone to check in with, uh, or someone to check in with if you run into an obstacle. Also, if you just need a safe space to talk about your dreams and your vision, sometimes, unfortunately, even the people, maybe even especially the people closest to us, are not always prepared to hear and support our new goals and dreams or our biggest goals and dreams. So, if you know that you don't have a, a friend or a partner, a buddy in some way where you can really get support around those things and share those, that's a good time to explore coaching. Also, if you're just drawn to this framework or process, if it appeals to you to think about aligning your life and becoming more aware of your thoughts and actions and whether they are aligned with what you say that you want and say that you believe in. And if you appreciate the kind of more holistic approach that prioritizes mind, body, spirit wellness, that's sort of my approach to things. So if any of that resonates with you, then also sign up for the free mini mastermind and we'll spend some time just coaching through whatever you want to work on in that time. And then we can also talk about what your longer term goals are and what you would be interested in exploring and coaching and the options for that. And if that's in alignment for both of us and we're both excited to keep working together, then we can do that. But either way, the first way to start is by signing up for the free mini mastermind. And whether or not you're interested in longer term coaching, there's no strings attached. So please take advantage of that free mini mastermind. Let me see if there are any comments I've missed. If not, that's all I have for you today. I'm just going to type something in here. Make sure that's still working. Yeah. Okay. Yay. Thank you so much for joining me. And I hope to see you again soon, maybe one-on-one in a little mini session. And remember that you can email me hello@alignmentandalchemy.com if you have any questions or if you want to share your personal mission statement or any other thoughts that you had on this workshop or requests for other ways I can support you or things that would be valuable for you. That's what I am here for. That's part of my personal mission is to use what I've got to serve other people on their quest for deeper peace and joy and wellness. So thanks for joining me, and I will see you soon, I hope.